Hello, this is Jane Goodall. We're living in dark times, especially environmentally, where we're faced with the twin threats of climate change and loss of biodiversity, and also still battling with the pandemic. And all of this, of course, we brought upon ourselves by our absolute disrespect of nature and animals. It's so very important that we realize we're part of and depend on the natural world for clean air, water, food, everything. But it's healthy ecosystems we depend on. And we must face the shocking fact that we're living through the sixth great extinction in the history of life on planet Earth. In the forests of Gombe, I learned how everything was interconnected, each plant and animal species having a role to play. And as more species become locally extinct, this can have a devastating effect on the whole ecosystem and may, in fact, lead to ecosystem collapse. At last, more people are facing up to the damage that we humans are inflicting on our planet, partly because of the absurd idea that there can be unlimited economic development on a planet with finite resources, partly because of poverty, where people harm the environment in order to live, such as cutting down trees to create more farmland or to get money from charcoal or timber, and partly because of the unsustainable lifestyle of so many of us. We know that species are vanishing as a result of habitat loss, pollution, hunting, collectors, the exotic pet trade, and wildlife trafficking. And this involves plants and trees, not only wild animals. Finally, people are starting to realize how industrial agriculture, with its monocultures and heavy reliance on chemical herbicides and pesticides, is devastating the environment and causing massive loss of biodiversity. The pesticides and herbicides used don't only kill agricultural weeds and pests, plants that grow where they're not wanted by us, insects that appear where we don't want them to, but they kill other species as well, including insect pollinators. And they also kill the soil on which everything depends. This means more artificial fertilizer is used, with sometimes disastrous effect as it's washed into the rivers and oceans. Factory farms are particularly damaging, as more and more habitats are destroyed to grow the grain needed for the billions of sentient animals crowded into inhumane conditions. It takes a lot of water to turn vegetable to animal protein, and all these animals produce methane gas during digestion, a very virulent greenhouse gas. And also, of course, vast amounts of CO2 are released by the heavy machinery used in industrial farming. All of that is depressing, but fortunately, we're beginning to tackle the problems that we've created. We're beginning to use our extraordinary intellect to put things right. We're very lucky in that nature is so resilient. There are now many examples of areas that we have polluted and destroyed that, given the chance, and perhaps some help, can once again become beautiful. There are farms where the land was once ruined by so-called conventional farming, all that use of pesticides and so on, that are being offered back to the natural world, and records kept of the gradual return of wildlife. When I began the chimp research in 1960, the Gombe National Park was part of the great forest belt that stretched across equatorial Africa. But when I flew over the area in the late 80s, I was shocked to see the park was a tiny island of forest surrounded by bare hills. There were more people living there than the land could support, cutting down trees to get more land for farming or to make money from charcoal or timber. I realized then that if we didn't help the people to find ways of living without destroying their environment, we couldn't save chimps, forests, or anything else. And this led to the Jane Goodall Institute's very holistic program, Tokari, that began in 1994. It's our method of community-led conservation. And it's relevant to say that from the beginning we worked with village leaders to regenerate the degraded farmland without agricultural chemicals, of course. And once people realized that protecting the environment is not only for their wildlife, but also for their own health and future, they became our partners in conservation. They've stopped farming on the steep slopes and greatly reduced cutting timber, helping to prevent soil erosion. Gradually, trees have grown back from seeds and roots in the ground, and insects, birds, and mammals have returned and are still returning. And of course, we do some tree planting as well. There are now rewilding programs in many countries, and the realization, too, that to create a healthy ecosystem, it may be necessary to reintroduce key species that had become locally extinct, and they can't be reintroduced until you've protected their habitat. Now there are many examples of successful reintroductions. One such example, perhaps almost the best known because it's been written about so often, is the healing effect on the entire ecosystem after wolves and bison were returned to Yellowstone after being absent for about 100 years. And similar results are being documented in other parts of the world. Let me end by saying that even the efforts to regreen our cities, to exchange landscaped gardens, often with exotic plant species, for spaces where natural world can return, offering habitat to insects, birds, and small mammals. And some city councils allow wild plants to grow in the verges that run along beside our roads, and which provide much-needed habitat for butterflies and other insects. People are beginning to wake up and to realize that if we don't take action to protect and restore biodiversity, we're doomed. But it's not too late. Thank you.